chosen ones, stop. Right where you are, stop. If you're sitting there at 2 in the morning with the TV flickering blue light across your living room, if there's a prescription bottle on the counter you took an hour ago but sleep still won't come, if you're staring at photos of grandkids who barely call anymore and wondering if your whole life added up to anything that mattered, then you need to hear what I'm about to tell you. You were never ordinary, and somewhere deep in your bones, you've always known it. Listen to me carefully. That feeling you've carried since you were 7 years old, that sense that you don't quite fit, that you see things others miss, that you feel too much, care too deeply, hurt in ways you can't explain, that wasn't damage. That was marking. Heaven marked you before your first breath in that hospital, tagged you, coded you with something so rare that most pastors will never preach about it because they've never encountered it themselves. You're what the spiritual realm calls an omega-level chosen one. Now, before you think this is about ego or some feel-good self-help nonsense, let me stop you right there. This isn't a promotion. This is a burden. This is about why your life has been harder than it should been, why you've lost more than others, why betrayal found you when you were faithful, why you've walked through valleys that would have killed weaker souls. Not everyone is called, and of those who are called, only a fraction, maybe 1 in 10,000, carry an omega-level assignment. You weren't chosen because you're perfect. You were chosen because you could survive what was coming. Before I go deeper, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let the Spirit lead your heart. Now listen. By the end of this teaching, you're going to know whether the strange patterns of your life were random, or proof that heaven had you on file the whole time. You're going to understand why certain people feared you without reason, why animals behaved differently around you, why your prayers carried weight that made demons nervous. In part 5, I'm going to tell you something that will shake you to your core, why hell started tracking you when you were just a child, long before you even knew God by name. Don't click away. If you've ever been called too sensitive, too intense, or too spiritual, you might not be broken. You might be omega. Type, "I'm still here" in the comments right now. Let heaven see your agreement, because what I'm about to reveal might be the teaching you were born to hear. Let me ask you something that might cut deep. When you were 8 years old, sitting at the dinner table with your family, did you ever feel like you were speaking a different language? Like everyone else was having the same conversation they always had, but you were somewhere else entirely. You were the kid who cried when you saw a dead bird on the sidewalk, the teenager who couldn't laugh at the cruel jokes everyone else thought were funny, the young adult who walked away from parties early because the emptiness in that room was suffocating you. And your own family, they looked at you like you were broken. "Why can't you just be normal?" your mother said. "You think too much," your father muttered. Your siblings rolled their eyes when you tried to explain what you felt. Even in your own house, you were a stranger sleeping in a familiar bed. Then you went to church, hoping to finally find your people. But even there, something was off. They smiled, they hugged, they said the right words. But when you spoke about the deeper things, about what you actually felt when you prayed, about the spiritual battles you sensed in the air, the room went quiet, uncomfortable. You learned to keep your mouth shut. You spent 70, 80 years thinking, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe something's wrong with me. But listen to what the Apostle Paul said in Ephesians 6:2. "We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world." Do you understand what that means? The conflict around you was never about personality clashes. It was never about you being too sensitive or too intense. It was spiritual warfare. Your presence threatened darkness, and darkness doesn't sit quietly when light walks into the room. From the moment you took your first breath, your soul was on spiritual surveillance. Hell was watching, not because you were perfect, but because you carried something that made demons nervous. You weren't just disliked, chosen one. You were misread, because your depth exposed other people's shallowness. Your light irritated what wanted to stay hidden. You were like a lighthouse in a family that preferred the dark. Of course they squinted at you. Your soul has been a mirror, and not everyone likes what they see reflected back. That coworker who always seemed uncomfortable around you. That cousin who avoided you at reunions. That church member who smiled but never invited you closer. They felt something they couldn't name. Your presence was a frequency their spirit couldn't handle. This is omega-level wiring. You've been broadcasting on a channel most people can't even tune into. And the isolation you've felt your entire life, that wasn't punishment. That was preparation. Because God needed someone who couldn't be corrupted by crowd mentality. Someone who'd been refined in the furnace of misunderstanding. In a few minutes, I'm going to show you why certain rooms go silent when you walk in. Why people get defensive around you without you saying a word. That discomfort was never about your personality. But right now, if this feels like someone's been reading your diary, just whisper where you are. Lord, I see it now. You don't need anyone's permission to accept that heaven saw you correctly, even when people didn't. Because what comes next will explain why your loneliness was actually your greatest qualification. Let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. How many hospital waiting rooms have you sat in? How many funerals have you attended where you had to be strong for everyone else while your own heart was shattering? How many nights have you lain awake wondering how you were going to make it through another month when the bills were piled higher than your faith felt? You've been through fire, haven't you? Not just one fire. Multiple infernos. Health scares that made doctors shake their heads. Marriages that ended when you thought, till death do us part, meant something. Financial collapse that left you eating the same meal 3 days in a row and pretending you weren't hungry. Betrayals from people who sat in your living room, ate your food, and then stabbed you in the back the moment you turned around. You've outlived people you thought you couldn't live without. You've buried dreams alongside bodies. You've watched everything you built crumble like sand castles in a hurricane. And yet, here's what makes you omega-level rare. Here's what separates you from everyone else who went through similar storms. You still cry when you see someone hurting. You still stop to help a stranger in the grocery store who's short on cash. You still pray for people who never apologized, never called back, never acknowledged the damage they caused. Your heart is still soft. That is not weakness, beloved. That is spiritual authority. Listen to me carefully. Anyone can get hard after pain. Anyone can build walls, shut down, become bitter and cold. That's the easy path. That's what most people do. But to go through what you've been through and still love, to survive betrayal and still trust God, to lose everything and still worship, that's omega-level resilience. Jeremiah 20:18 says, "Is not my word like fire and like a hammer that breaks the rock in pieces?" The fire you walked through wasn't meant to destroy you. It was meant to purify you. The same flames that almost broke you became the furnace that refined you into pure gold. You're not glass that shattered at the first hit. You're a diamond that formed under pressure so intense it would have crushed ordinary people into dust. And the fact that you're still praying, the fact that you still believe God hears you after all those prayers that seem to bounce off the ceiling, that's proof your faith isn't built on feelings or circumstances. It's built on bedrock. It's built on something hell itself cannot shake. But here's what you need to understand. Some of your biggest attacks came right after you tried to get closer to God. That timing wasn't random. There's a pattern to your storms. And when we decode it in the next sign, you'll see just how rare your calling truly is. If you know you should have lost your mind by now but God kept you, type, "God kept me," in the comments. That's your agreement with heaven that you survived for a reason. Because what you're about to discover next will explain why the enemy fought so hard to break you. Let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. How many times in your 70, 80 years of living have people told you to calm down? To stop being so serious, to lighten up, let it go. Stop making everything so deep. How many family dinners ended with someone saying, "There you go again, getting all spiritual"? How many times did your own children roll their eyes when you tried to warn them about something your spirit was screaming about? How many friendships faded because they said you were too intense? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. You weren't too much. You were exactly enough for an assignment they couldn't see. See, the world has been lying to you for decades. They called you too emotional when you wept over things that should make people weep. They called you too sensitive when you felt the pain in a room before anyone spoke a word. They called you too spiritual when you saw the hand of God where others saw coincidence. But here's what they didn't tell you. Here's what the enemy worked overtime to hide from your understanding. You are spiritual radar in a generation that prefers to fly blind. Think about it. You walk into your daughter's house and immediately sense something's wrong in her marriage. You don't need to hear the arguments. You don't need to see the evidence. Your spirit picks up the frequency of breakdown before it becomes visible. And what happens? They tell you you're imagining things. They tell you to mind your business. They tell you you're being paranoid. Until 6 months later when the divorce papers get filed. And nobody apologizes for calling you crazy. You sit in a church service and something in your gut says, "This isn't right. Something's off here. The music is perfect. The preacher is polished. Everyone around you is clapping and smiling. But your spirit is sending up flares, warning you that truth is being diluted, that the altar has been compromised, that what looks anointed is actually just entertainment." And what do they tell you? You're being judgmental, you're being critical. You need to be more loving. Until that pastor gets exposed. Until the financial scandal breaks. Until the congregation discovers what your spirit knew all along. Proverbs 20:20 says, "The spirit of man is the lamp of the Lord, searching all the inner depths of his heart." You're not broken, beloved. You're a lamp, and lamps don't apologize for exposing darkness. Here's what I need you to understand. There is a part of you that has always known this life is not all there is. That knowing isn't pride. That's not you being difficult. That's assignment memory. Your spirit remembers what your mind forgot, that you were sent here, not born here. That you carry eternity in your chest, and temporal things were never going to satisfy you. You're like a smoke detector in a world that hates loud noises. They'd rather rip out the battery than deal with the fire. But the fire is real. The danger is real. And you were installed in this generation to sound the alarm. You are not too much. You are perfectly calibrated for the spiritual climate you were sent to disrupt. Now here's what's going to shake you. In the next section, we're going to talk about why certain churches, jobs, and relationships never felt right to you. No matter how good they looked on paper. There's a reason your soul keeps rejecting environments where truth gets watered down. But first, if you've ever been told you're too sensitive, drop it in the comments right now. You're not crazy. You're tuned to a frequency this world can't hear. Listen to me very carefully, chosen one. I need to ask you something that might cut deeper than anything we talked about so far. Why did your childhood feel like a war zone when other kids seemed to have it easy? Why were you the one who faced abuse when your siblings didn't? Why did addiction ravage your home? Why did poverty cling to your family like a curse? Why were you bullied, isolated, shamed for reasons you couldn't understand? Why did mental illness stalk your bloodline? Why did you meet darkness before you even knew the word deliverance? You thought it was bad luck. You thought you were cursed. You spent 70 years believing something was wrong with you. But what if I told you it was the exact opposite? Hell does not waste bullets on people with no assignment. Let that sink in. The enemy doesn't mobilize his forces against ordinary lives. He doesn't deploy demons to destroy people who pose no threat to his kingdom. But you've been under spiritual surveillance since you were a child because hell saw something in you that you didn't see in yourself. You were marked as a threat, not a victim. Look at the pattern in Scripture. When Pharaoh wanted to destroy Israel's deliverer, what did he do? He ordered every Hebrew baby boy thrown into the Nile. Moses was targeted in infancy. When King Herod heard about the Messiah's birth, he massacred every child under 2 years old in Bethlehem. Jesus faced a death sentence before he could walk. When young David was anointed king, Saul spent years hunting him through caves and wilderness, trying to kill the future before it could manifest. Destinies that threaten darkness are targeted early. Ephesians 6:2 tells us plainly, "We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world." That father who abused you, that wasn't just a broken man. That was a principality working through human weakness to destroy what God planted in you. That addiction that stole your mother, that wasn't just disease. That was a ruler of darkness trying to orphan your calling before you could walk in it. You've been living like a classified file in heaven's archive, and hell kept trying to break in. Think about your earliest memories, the fear that wrapped around your childhood like a cold blanket, the instability that never let you feel safe, the shame that told you that you were dirty, worthless, unwanted. You thought those were just unfortunate circumstances, but chosen one, what if those were assassination attempts? What if the worst things that happened to you were not proof that God abandoned you, but proof that the enemy recognized you? Let me ask you something that might shatter everything you thought you knew about your story. If you were insignificant, why did hell work so hard to destroy you? If you carried nothing of value, why the relentless attack? If your life didn't matter, why the spiritual surveillance? The enemy saw your future before you did. He saw the prayers you'd pray that would shake principalities. He saw the wisdom you'd carry that would set captives free. He saw the testimony you'd speak that would demolish his lies. So he tried to kill it early. He tried to bury your calling under trauma so deep you'd never dig it out. But you're still here. Every suicide thought you survived. Every night you should have overdosed but didn't. Every moment you wanted to quit but kept breathing. That wasn't luck, beloved. That was God's hand of protection over an Omega-level assignment that hell could not touch. Your childhood felt like a battlefield because your future is a front line. Place your hand on your heart right now. Just do it and say these words out loud. Lord, rewrite my story through your eyes. You're not too old for God to reframe your past. You're not too broken for Him to reveal why you survived what should have killed you. And what we're about to discuss next will show you the sign that terrifies hell more than anything else when an Omega-level chosen one finally remembers who they are. Now let me tell you something that's going to explain every strange encounter you've ever had in your life. You walk into a room and something changes. You don't say a word. You don't try to do anything. But the temperature drops. The argument that was raging suddenly goes quiet. The chow settles. People look at you and they don't know why, but they feel different. Or maybe it's the opposite. You step into certain spaces and people get uncomfortable. They can't explain it. You're not threatening them. You're not judging them. But something in them knows that they can't hide when you're present. This has been happening your whole life, hasn't it? Strangers on the bus telling you their deepest secrets within 5 minutes. The cashier at the grocery store breaking down in tears while ringing up your milk and bread. Your grandchildren calming down the moment you hold them, even when their parents couldn't settle them for hours. You thought this was coincidence. You thought you just had one of those faces, but beloved, this is not personality. This is assignment. You are a walking portal between heaven and earth. Let me take you to Acts 19 to Thime. There's a moment where some wannabe exorcists try to cast out demons using Jesus' name. And the demon speaks back and says, "Jesus I know and Paul I know, but who are you?" Then the demon beats them so badly they run out of the house naked and bleeding. Why does this matter? Because there are realms, spiritual realms, that know you by assignment even when you don't know yourself. Hell has a file on you. Demons recognize your frequency before you open your mouth. Angels have been stationed around your life since you were in your mother's womb. This is what it means to be Omega level. You don't just believe in God's presence. You host it, you carry it, you channel it. Things change because you showed up. Think about the woman with the issue of blood who touched Jesus' garment. He stopped. In a crowd of thousands pushing and shoving, he stopped and said, "Who touched me? I felt power leave my body." That's what happens when presence meets desperation. That's what happens when a portal opens. You are not chasing influence, chosen one. You are influence when you're aligned with God. Your life is a sermon with skin on it. You are a living temple walking down the street, and whether people bow or run, they cannot ignore the God you carry. But here's what most people don't understand. This gift has cost you everything, hasn't it? You couldn't stay in environments that diluted truth, no matter how comfortable they were. You couldn't fake it in churches that played games with God's presence. You couldn't pretend in relationships where people wanted your light but rejected your fire. You were never meant to fit. You were meant to shift. If you've watched this far, you're not here by accident. Type, "I carry His presence," if you're ready to accept that your existence is not casual. Because what I'm about to show you next will explain why you could never compromise, and why that refusal has been your greatest qualification. Listen to me, chosen one. There's a reason you can't sit in that church anymore. There's a reason you stopped answering calls from people you've known for 20 years. There's a reason you walk out of Bible studies feeling emptier than when you walked in. You thought something was wrong with you. You wondered if you'd become judgmental, bitter, too hard to please. But what if I told you that your discomfort isn't a character flaw, it's a spiritual alert system? Your soul is rejecting poison disguised as fellowship. Think about the last time you sat in a circle of believers and they spent 2 hours gossiping about Sister Martha's divorce, but not one person opened their Bible. Think about that church service where the pastors spent 45 minutes talking about financial success, but never mentioned the cross. Think about those friends who call themselves Christians, but their lives look exactly like the world's. Same language, same priorities, same emptiness dressed up in Sunday clothes. You tried to stay. God knows you tried. You smiled through the shallow conversations. You nodded during sermons that had more psychology than theology. You pretended not to notice when people who claimed to love Jesus spent more time on Facebook than on their knees. But something inside you kept screaming, "This isn't it. This can't be all there is." Romans 10:22 thunders through your spirit. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Your soul was never built to conform, beloved. It was built to transform environments. You're not supposed to blend into lukewarm Christianity, you're supposed to set it on fire. But here's what that cost you. You lost friendships when you wouldn't participate in the gossip anymore. You left a church where your family had gone for 30 years because the presence of God had been replaced with performance and programs. People called you divisive, too deep, too radical, too much. And in your quiet moments, you wondered if they were right. You questioned whether your standards were too high, whether your hunger for real truth made you impossible to be around. But let me tell you what was really happening. Your spirit was refusing to betray its assignment. An Omega-level chosen one cannot survive on spiritual junk food. You need the meat of the word. You need authentic worship that costs something. You need conversations that go deeper than the weather and the grandkids. You're like an eagle that was forced to live in a chicken coop. You can peck at seeds on the ground for a while, but eventually your wings start to ache. Eventually, something in you remembers you were made for the sky, not the dirt. You cannot breathe in rooms where truth is on life support, where the Holy Spirit is no longer welcome, where comfort has replaced conviction. This is the moment where many Omega-level chosen ones either shrink back into smallness or say, "Lord, I will walk with you even if it means walking alone." The cost of alignment is loneliness, but the cost of compromise is your soul. So which will you choose? Because in the next section, I'm going to lay out what happens when an Omega-level chosen one finally stops apologizing and starts aligning. This is where your whole timeline starts to make sense. This is where you discover why you had to walk away from everything familiar. If you're done pretending to be smaller than God made you, write "No more shrinking" in the comments right now. That's your agreement with heaven, not with me. But the question burning in your chest is this: what happens when you finally choose truth over belonging? Now listen to me carefully, chosen one. There comes a moment where remembering you're chosen is not enough. You must begin to live as chosen. You've spent 70, 80, maybe 90 years surviving, getting by, making do. But God didn't preserve you through all those wars just so you could finish your days in neutral. He kept you alive because there's still work only you can do. And I know what you're thinking right now. I'm too old for this. My time has passed. Let the younger generation handle it. But let me tell you something that's going to shatter that lie forever. Moses was 80 years old when God called him from the burning bush. 80. The world would put him in a nursing home. But God said, "Now you're ready. Now you understand suffering. Now you know what it means to depend on me completely." Your age is not a disqualifier in the kingdom. It's a credential. Every year you've lived is proof of survived wars. Every scar you carry is evidence that you're still standing when others fell. But here's what most believers miss. Being Omega-level isn't just about knowing who you are. It's about operating in what you carry. And that requires discipline. Daily intentional, sacred discipline. Think of spiritual disciplines as divine technology. Prayer is your power line to heaven. Fasting is purification of frequency. Scripture is your alignment manual. Stillness is your frequency reset. These aren't religious routines. These are weapons of warfare. Your living room can become a command center in the spirit. Right from that recliner you sit in every morning, you can shift atmospheres over your city. Your prayers are radio signals heaven never ignores. Every time you intercede, you're transmitting light into darkness. But let me ask you 3 questions that should guide every single day you have left on this earth. Write these down. Lord, what am I transmitting today? Because, beloved, you're always broadcasting something. Peace or anxiety? Faith or fear? Hope or despair? What frequency are you on? Who needs the peace I carry? There's someone in your neighborhood, your family, your grocery store who's about to give up. And God positioned you in their path to be the calm in their storm. What do you need me to release in prayer over my children, grandchildren, this nation? Your prayers don't just comfort. They create. They shift. They break chains that have held your bloodline captive for generations. Here's what you need to understand. You are a living node in God's divine network. If you silence yourself, an entire branch of blessing gets weaker. Your yes matters that much. Your obedience affects people you'll never meet. Your prayers are holding up structures in the spirit realm that would collapse without you. This isn't about guilt. This is about glory. You were chosen to carry weight. You were selected to stand in gaps. You were marked to be a transmitter of heaven's frequency in the final hour. So I'm going to ask you straight. Are you ready to stop just remembering and start becoming? Are you ready to activate what's been dormant? Because in the last part of this message, I'm going to pray with you, not a polite prayer, an activation prayer. And if this teaching has confirmed even one thing in your spirit, you cannot leave before that moment. Get ready, turn down distractions, silence your phone. You've waited decades for language for your journey. Don't miss what happens next. Chosen one, we've walked a long road together tonight, and now we're here. At the moment, everything clicks into place. Let me take you back through what we've uncovered. Your life has been misunderstood since childhood. You survived fires that should have left you cold and bitter, but somehow your heart stayed soft. You've always been too much for this world, too sensitive, too deep, too aware. You faced spiritual battles before you even knew what to call them. Atmospheres shift when you walk into a room. You cannot stomach diluted truth or shallow faith. And there's been this pull inside you, this relentless hunger for something higher, something more. You thought you were just different, just damaged, just unlucky. But heaven calls you something else. Omega level chosen one. Not because you're better than anyone, but because you were built to carry what others cannot. You were wired to see what others miss. You were forged in fires that would have destroyed lesser vessels. And now I need to ask you the question that will determine everything that happens next in your life. Are you willing to lose who you pretended to be for 70, 80, 90 years, to finally become who God intended from the beginning? Because here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. You're not at the end of your story. You're at the reveal. This is the chapter where the plot twist makes sense, where every betrayal, every loss, every moment you felt forgotten suddenly aligns into a divine pattern you couldn't see while you were walking through it. Right now I'm going to pray over you, not a polite prayer, a commissioning prayer, and I want you to receive this with every fiber of your being. Father, I speak over the mind of every Omega level chosen one hearing my voice. No more torment. No more questioning if they're crazy. No more second-guessing the visions, the dreams, the knowing that comes without explanation. Let their minds be fortresses of clarity. I speak over their bodies. Give them supernatural strength for their remaining years. Not to retire into irrelevance, but to rise into assignment. Let their bones carry the authority their scars have earned. I speak over their families. Break generational curses tonight. Bring prodigals home. Let the prayers they've prayed in secret become the breakthrough their bloodline has been waiting for. I speak over their cities, their neighborhoods, their churches. Let them walk as spiritual generals who shift atmospheres with their presence. Let every place their feet touch become holy ground. And Father, I pray that every trauma they've endured be reframed right now, not as punishment, but as training. Not as abandonment, but as preparation for this exact moment. From this day forward, you will not walk like an accident. You will walk like an assignment. Your living room is an altar. Your voice is a trumpet. Your life is prophecy in motion. God is not done writing with your life. He just turned the page to the chapter where you stop surviving and start reigning. You are both the scar and the healer, the wound and the witness. If you know this word was for you, type "I receive it" in the comments. Say it out loud where you are. Share this with one person who's always felt too much for this world. You might be waking up another Omega. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Not for numbers, but so you never miss what heaven says next to this remnant. You are not ordinary, you are Omega.